So hello everyone, this is C. Ashish Kedia and welcome to the second class on Business Economics for CA Foundation for May 25 attempt and beyond. Students, in this class, that is the second class today, we are going to complete our chapter 1. What was chapter 1 unit 1 related to? It was related to introduction to business economics, wherein I had basically explained some fundas of business economics and given some homework to you, right? I am sure you have done that homework and that was pretty easy MCQs that I had given. If still somebody has not seen part 1, introduction to business economics, I would advise you to please watch it. The link has been added in the description box, right? Now let's move on to unit 2, chapter 1, unit 2, which talks about basic problems of economy and role of price mechanism. Okay, so first of all friends, I'll remind you that whatever I highlight using the yellow shade is the one that has already come in the exam or that has higher chances of coming in the exam in the MCQ format, right? So let's come to the point. The topic is pertaining to basic problems of economy and role of price mechanism. So why does any economic problem arise? Friends, there are four economic problems mainly that we are going to speak about, but there is only one central problem. And you know what it is? The scarcity of resources. This was also addressed in our part 1 introduction class, where I had told that I am having to work, you are having to study and then work forward, because all of us want money. Why do we want money? Because resources are limited and we want to buy them. Had the resources been unlimited, then nobody would have to work because everything would already be available. Yes or no? Yes sir, you are right. So friends, going by that logic, the central economic problem is that the resources are limited. A very important point: scarcity of resources is the central economic problem. Has it come in the exam earlier? Yes. Still, does it have chance of future occurrence? Yes. So please remember, it's very important. Okay, the central economic problem is further divided into four basic problems, as I told you. So because there is scarcity of resources, four problems arise. In fact, in January attempt, a question came from this part. The question was, which of them is not an economic problem? So whatever it is, there are four main economic problems: the problem of what to produce, the problem of how to produce, the problem of for whom to produce, and the problem of provision of economic growth. So let's discuss them one by one. Keep one thing in mind: there is only one central economic problem, which is what? Tell me. Which is scarcity of resources. Very good. Now, the problem of what to produce. What exactly does this problem say? Since resources are limited, suppose a country needs butter, that is food, and guns, that is defense. A country needs both. Let's say country has labor to produce both of these. Can the country produce unlimited of these? No. Why? Because despite our wants being unlimited, the resources are limited to produce them. So a decision has to be made as to how much quantity of butter is to be made and how many quantities of guns are to be made. Yes or no? Yes sir. So that's the problem of what to produce and how much to produce. How to produce rather talks about two techniques of production. Friends, there are two techniques of production. One is capital intensive, the other is labor intensive technique of production. Capital intensive is the one which uses more of machine, less of labor. Labor intensive is the one which uses more of labor and less of machines. So a decision has to be made in an economy as to how will I produce. Will I use more of machines or will I use more of labor? For whom to produce? How will the distribution of income take place? This is why for whom to produce is also called the distribution problem. In MCQ it may come. It is also called the distribution problem, as to who will get the resources produced by us. And what provisions are to be made for economic growth means how will the economy grow further? What is the next plan? So again, what is the central economic problem? If you listen to the class carefully, you will understand stuff, you will be able to remember those things. So listen carefully. So what did I say? The central economic problem is the scarcity of resources. It has further been subdivided into four parts. What and how much to produce, how to produce, for whom to produce, and what provisions are to be made for economic growth. Right, sir. So these are the four problems. These are the four central economic problems arising from unlimited wants and limited resources. That is scarcity of resources. As I told you, the problem of what to produce discuss about how many units of each good is to be produced. Right? Yes, sir. What to be produced is to be decided, but also in what quantities they are to be produced. So remember, the problem of what to produce also includes the problem of how much to produce. So if institute asks you, you are ready. So the problem of what to produce means which resource to manufacture. How much to produce means how much units of that resource to be manufactured. Right, sir. Friends, how to produce? If we talk about how to produce, friends, it is basically about whether we will use capital intensive techniques or whether we will use labor intensive techniques, as I have spoken. For whom to produce is about who will get the resources. That is how the resources should be distributed. I told you, market. This is ICI material, the best material for preparation of CA Foundation economics, right? So how much of the total output should be distributed among the members of the society? Yes, sir, we have understood this. Fourth problem is what provision should be made for economic growth. Means a society would not use its scarce resources only for current consumption. It will need it for future. This is because if it uses all the resources for current consumption, there will be no future production possible. If we use all the trees on planet Earth, what will our future generation have? How will they grow? So a society has to decide how much saving and investment should be made for future progress. An important MCQ, if I would be the paper setter, I would set is which of the four problems talks about investment. So remember, it is the provision for economic growth. Yes, sir, we have understood. Now, friends, there are three ways an economic system works. What is an economic system? Economic system is a system where three activities take place. Production takes place, exchange and distribution. Production means goods and services are manufactured. Distribution means people get income because they help in producing those goods and services, right? And exchange is people buying goods and services in return for money. Understood, sir? Friends, there are three types of economies that you need to remember. First, let me give you a brief idea on each, and then we will talk about what is relevant for our MCQ preparation. Okay, friends, capitalist economy is the one that operates from a profit making ideology. It thinks about making profit. It is run by entrepreneurs, not by the government. Yes, government is there in this economy, but not in the role of running businesses. Rather, government has a more administrative role here. That is, government will see whether rules and regulations are being respected or catered to or not, instead of kind of maneuvering into different businesses. No, government is not going to do that. Sir, we understand this. So that is what capitalist economy is all about. It is about freedom to both the producer and to the consumer. Producer gets the freedom of producing whatever they wish to, as long as it is legal. Consumer gets the freedom to buy. Consumer gets the benefit of having multiple alternatives and to choose among them. Sir, we are understanding this. Very good, congratulations. Example of this is United States, Hong Kong, South Korea, UK, so many other. There are so many other examples. So now let's talk about its features. I am 100% sure out of these three economies, features question will come. So please pay attention. Number one feature is, in this economy, you have a right to private property. Sir, what does right to private property means? Friends, right to private property means that individuals can own property in their own name. That is what a capitalist economy is all about, right? There is freedom of enterprise. As I told you, whatever business you want to do, you can do. That is freedom of enterprise. Freedom of choice. As a consumer, whatever goods and services you wish to buy, as long as it is within the realms of legality, as long as it is legal, you can, buy them. Consumer operates, producers operate with what motive? Profit motive in the capitalist economy, right? So profit is the driving force for the entrepreneurs. There is consumer sovereignty, means consumers have complete freedom. Consumers have complete freedom as to what they wish to buy. Consumers are the king here basically. Why? Because all the production activities are undertaken keeping in mind what the consumer needs. For example, in fact, this lecture that is completely, that is 100% in English, is going on keeping in mind that there is a section, there's a group of students who need the lecture to be in English. Consumer sovereignty, consumer is the king. Next is there is competition. Next is there is competition. Next is there is competition. There is a lot of competition. You know why? Because there is freedom of enterprise. So if you decide to do a business, I can also decide to do that same business. And yes, there is absence of government interference. Oftentimes students ask me that, sir, does it mean that there is no government here? I'm sorry, you are wrong. Yes, there is government here, but as I had spoken earlier, government has more of an administrative role to play here and not a business role, right? So there is absence of government interference here. Now, how does a capitalist economy take decisions? Sir, what decisions, sir? The decisions about the four problems: what to produce and how much to produce, how to produce, for whom to produce, and what provisions are to be made for economic growth. The answer to all these four problems is single word: profit motive and what the consumer wants. That's it. You want to study? Let's go. So, how do they decide what to produce? The answer is in the first line itself, as to what the consumers are ready to buy and what is going to give them profits. Understood, sir? Sir, how do they decide how to produce? Since I am operating from a profit standpoint, I will use that technique, be it capital or be it labor intensive. I will use that technique that is going to minimize my cost of production. That is going to make his cost of production minimum, as it is written here. Okay, sir, we do understand this. Then we decide for whom to produce. Then, friends, a decision is taken as to for whom are we producing. So remember everyone, goods and services will be produced who have the ability to pay for it, who have the ability to pay for it, right? And how the decision about consumption, savings and investments are taken. See, consumptions and savings are done by consumers and investments are done by entrepreneurs. Now, consumer savings, how much consumers are going to save, it depends on the prevailing interest rate in the market. So if market is offering higher interest, so if I deposit my money in any market, be it a bank, and I get a larger interest, my intention to save more will increase because I am able to earn more. Yes, sir. And investment decisions depend upon rate of return. As a producer, as an investor, I will invest on the basis of whether the returns I am earning in the market are high or low. If I am not able to earn much, I will not invest much. That is how the decisions are taken. In short, profit motive. Friends, capitalist economy has its own set of advantages and disadvantages. If you talk about advantages, number one is it is self-regulating and works through price mechanism. A very important point. What is price mechanism is the question. Friends, price mechanism refers to a situation. You can write it down. Price mechanism refers to a situation where the prices of a product are decided by the market forces of demand and supply. Where the prices of a product are decided by the market forces of demand and supply. Sir, what does it mean really? Okay, I'll show it to you here. Suppose price of a product is written here. Quantity demanded and quantity supplied is what I have written here. Now, if price is 10 rupees, so if price is low, demand is going to be high. So suppose demand is 5,000 units, supply is only 2,000 units. You know why? because when price is low, people tend to demand more. Suppose price rises to 20 rupees. Now when price rises, the demand will eventually fall because people are not willing to pay more. So maybe it will reduce to 2500. But supply, the sellers are very happy. They are willing to sell more, 2500. And when price is 30 rupees, demand falls further to 1000 units, supply rises to 5000 units. Now friends, if you notice, there is a price level at which demand and supply have become equal, which is at 20 rupees. This is why it's self-regulating. Automatically prices are decided in a way that demand becomes equal to supply. This phenomena is called price mechanism, wherein the prices of a product are not decided by an individual producer or an individual consumer. Rather, it is decided by the market forces of demand and supply. So it is a very important point. In a capitalist economy, price mechanism operates. Next, there is existence of private property. So the advantage here is that since one can own private property, there will be incentive. There will be incentive to do what? There will be incentive to earn more, because I will be able to pass on the property to my future generations, right sir? Economic growth takes place faster under capitalism. Do you know why? Because investors will invest only in those projects which are feasible, which have a possibility of growth. Sir, understood? Next is resources are used in activities only in which they are most productive. So this economy results in optimum utilization of resources, because here the private sector is trying to minimize the cost of production. Sir, we have understood this. There is also an incentive for innovation. You know why? Because I'll be able to earn profits if I use better technology. So there is direct initiative or incentive to work harder and innovate. Sir, we have understood this. But then, like with everything, every advantage follows some disadvantages. So there are certain demerits or disadvantages. Number one is profit motive. So the societal welfare, the welfare of people comes at stake here. Okay, sir, understood, sir. So under capitalism, there is precedence of property rights over human rights. So property is number one, human rights are number two. There are higher inequalities. You will see rich are very richer, poor are very poorer in this economy. It ignores human welfare, as I had told you. Remember, also do not forget, whatever I am shading with yellow color represents the most important part of the topic, right? Exploitation of labor is common. You know why? Because here, whatever work should ideally be done by 10 people, I will hire only 5 people to do that work, because I need to minimize my costs. There is enormous waste of productive resources. You know why? Because a lot of amount is spent on advertisement. In fact, companies like Coca-Cola, Pepsi invest so much money in marketing that it is greater than national income of some African countries. So friends, that was about capitalist economy. By the way, capitalist economy has a very fancy name. Do you want to know that name? If it's not written in the book, there it must be written. Even if I am unable to find, I'll write it down for you. It's called laissez-faire economy. Capitalist economy is also called laissez-faire economy. Laissez-faire economy. Sir, why do we call it laissez-faire economy? Because it is free from government intervention. This economy is free from government intervention. So laissez-faire means free from government intervention. Going by that, we come now to socialist economy. The idea of socialist economy was brought in by two people, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels in a book called the Communist Manifesto in 1848. Now what does socialist economy mean, sir? It is just the opposite of capitalist economy, represented in the form of countries like Russia and China. So what socialist economy believes is that government should be producing the goods and services. Government should be the owner. In capitalist economy, private ownership is allowed. In socialist economy, it is saying that government should own the resources on behalf of the people. Because if socialist economy continues, then there will be inequality. in capitalist economy, if capitalist economy continues, then there will be inequality. This is what socialist economy says. Socialist economy tells us that in order to reduce these inequalities, government intervention is mandatory. But sir, why would you know an esteemed scholar like Karl Marx think of this idea? Let me tell you why. Friends, you will have to think from the standpoint of Karl Marx. See, Karl Marx is born in an era. He wrote this book in 1848. So we can assume that he was born in 1800s. This was the time of industrial revolution, particularly in Britain. So when Karl Marx, you think of Karl Marx as a child. What is Karl Marx as a child seeing? During the industrial revolution, the people were made to work for around 15 to 16 hours in the factories, and they were told that why are you going home, sleep in the factory only because you again have to come to work. Imagine the situation. So there was lot of ruthlessness which Karl Marx observed. And therefore Karl Marx as a child thought of, you know what if the government had intervened. And that the you know and therefore the book took the form of the Communist Manifesto. Right, sir, we understand this. A socialist economy is also called as a command economy because government is commanding resources here, or centrally planned economy, very important. So here there is a central planning authority, that is the government. What is the feature of this economy? Collective ownership. As I told you, resources are not owned by private players. So there is no one individual who is the owner of resources in this economy. Rather, it is owned collectively by the people. Actually, it's the government who is owning this on behalf of the people. There is economic planning. Means here there is no price mechanism operating. That is, demand and supply forces are not allowed to act here. Here, government decisions are taking place. That is, the decisions of central planning authority are being implemented. That is why it is called a command economy or a centrally planned economy, socialist economy. As I told you, here there is absence of consumer choice. In capitalist economy, there are 10 sellers of for the same product. Since here government is allocating which producer will do what, therefore chances of consumer having a lot of choice is very little. Here income is relatively equally distributed. There is minimum role of market forces, as I told you, because everything is controlled. So market forces are not allowed. Okay, demand and supply forces, you are free. And there is absence of competition. The example of this particular type of economy is Vietnam, China and Cuba. Sir, by the way, why there is absence of competition? As I told you, since government is conducting all the business, since government is owning all the resources, then who will it compete with? There is no scope for competition here. Yes, sir. Now, what are the merits of socialism? Now, friends, what are the merits of socialism? Number one is equitable distribution of income and wealth. Number two, rapid and balanced economic development. Number three, since it's a planned economy, there will be better utilization of resources. I will give you an example of how. In capitalist economy, you will see production of luxury cars like Ferrari, production of cars like Rolls Royce. While in that same economy, there will be people who will be dying of hunger. So the resources which are being used in the production of these luxuries could have been ideally used in satisfaction of hunger of this particular poor class. In a socialist economy, this will improve. There will be better allocation. There will be equality. Unemployment is minimized as everybody will get work according to what they have skills of. Socialism ensures right to work and minimum standard of living. Yes. Here there is laborers are free from exploitation because government is controlling the strings. But there are demerits. As you have seen in most of the government departments, There is red tapeism. Red tapeism means delay in projects. Whatever matter comes to their table is delayed. There is favoritism. Whoever is their favorite, that will get promoted. Those will get promoted. So meritocracy takes a hit here. Meritocracy takes a beat here. If I am good, I should ideally be promoted. But here, whoever is the favorite of the neta, or I said it in Hindi, whoever is the favorite of the politician would ideally be promoted. It restricts the freedom of individuals because they cannot produce whatever they want to. It takes away the basic rights such as right of private property. Here nothing is yours. You are not the owner. Government has allowed your house to stay. You are not the owner of the house. Even if you work hard compared to your colleagues, you will not get more money. You will not get more benefits. So there is little incentive to work hard. If I cannot own property, if I do not get promotion on the basis of merit, then why will I work hard? There is limited freedom of choice because there are not multiple producers for the product. Yes, sir. So complete socialism is not desirable nor possible. As I told, laborers are not awarded according to their efficiency. So there is a disincentive to work. They will not want to work harder. Yes, sir, we have understood. Now let's come to the real deal, the mixed economy. India is a mixed economy, and today most of the planet Earth is a mixed economy. There is nothing called a pure capitalist economy or a pure socialist economy. No, there is not. What is a mixed economy? It is basically where the private sector and government both exist and their roles are distributed. Private sector will do some businesses and government will do those businesses which are essential, which are necessary for the economy, like iron, steel, petrol, which are basically must for an economy to have, and which private sector don't want to enter, maybe because of huge capital requirements, because iron and steel requires huge amount of money, or maybe because they have a long gestation period. Long gestation period means in iron and steel industry, if you invest today, the chances of money returning or profits generating is around 7 years, 10 years time. So it involves use of both markets and governments, and therefore it is a mixed economy in nature. So friends, features of mixed economy is there is coexistence of both private and public sector. As I told you, with private sector involved in some businesses for their personal benefits, and public sector involved in societal welfare. Social welfare is the main objective here of public sector. Merits best of both worlds. Here you see price mechanism as well as you see decision making by the government here in some areas. It encourages risk taking because private businesses are allowed. So we can combine the merits and demerits of the two. So sir, have we covered this? Yes, we have covered it. Now can we sir, solve some MCQs to see whether we are able to answer our questions? Yes, let's see. Economists regard decision making as important because resources required to satisfy our unlimited wants and needs are finite. Yes, resources are limited. ठीक है. It is crucial to understand how we can allocate our scarce resources to satisfy unlimited wants. Both are correct. So all of the above, because I will not read the third one. Business economics is practical, yes or no? It's practical, yes or no? Yes, sir. Involves practical application. It is microeconomics which is theoretical. Sir, where are these MCQs from? These are from part 1. These topics were discussed in part 1. MCQ we are doing now. It incorporates tools from multiple disciplines like operations research. Yes or no? So both B and C are correct. Our answer is D. In economics, the term scarcity is used to mean, yes, there are two kinds of scarcity, friends. One is what we call absolute scarcity. Absolute means resources are less. But relative scarcity means that resources are less when you compare it to our wants. As it is said that the world has resources enough to satisfy the needs of people, but not the greed of people. So when I say the resources are scarce, It is not because they are actually scarce. It is because our wants are unlimited. Thus, resources seem to be scarce in compared to our wants. So there is relative scarcity that we talk about. A very good question. What implication does resource scarcity have for the satisfaction of want? What is the implication? It means that not all wants can be satisfied. Which of the following is a normative statement? A similar question came in January examination. What did I say? What is normative statement? When it is talking about when something should be done or something ought to be done. Just look at the language and you will find out. Language should be or ought to be. Here it is, should be. I will not even read the question. I will not even care to read the question. Normative means the words like should be, ought to be, has to be there. In every economic system, scarcity imposes limitations on what? On everyone, on household, firms, government, and so on. So everybody is, kind of, what should I say, bound by this problem. Macroeconomics is also called, a very good question. Friends, macroeconomics is also called aggregate economics. I told you it deals with aggregate. An example of positive economics. Positive statements only talks about what is. It doesn't tell about what should be. So when price rises, quantity demanded falls. So what is? It is not giving us what should be. So how something should be done? It doesn't talk about that, and therefore A is our answer. Next, let's skip a few questions, so that you can practice some. Question 20. Which of the following statements is incorrect? Still, if you solve and you find out any difficulty or you see that the answer given in the material is not matching with what you are thinking, just write it down in the comment box and I'll surely help you out. Okay, which of the following statement is incorrect? Question number 20. Let's have a look. Business economics is normative in nature. It is correct. Business economics has a close connection with stats. Yes. Is need not worry about macro variables. Wrong. It incorporates elements of macroeconomics. A capitalist economy uses dash as the principal means of allocating resources. Very good question. So what are used as a means of allocating resources? Prices. So product whose prices give more profits, that will be used. So prices are the means of allocating resources. By the way, capitalist economy is also called market economy or market system, right? Which of the following is a disadvantage in this kind of economy? That is the question. Read it out. Income will tend to be unevenly distributed. Yes, inequality is a demerit of capitalist economy. Capital intensive technique would get chosen in a labor surplus economy. No, capital intensive means where we use more of machines. So when we are using more of machines, we will use it where machines are more. In a capital surplus economy, where capital is cheaply available. That is, capital is available at lower cost. Sir, we are understanding. The economic system in which means of production are owned and controlled by private individuals. You have understood. Macroeconomics. Now, what I'm doing is I'm kind of shuffling questions so that we get an idea. Macroeconomics is the study of what? National economy and global economy as a whole. That's correct. Freedom of choice is the advantage of capitalism. Exploitation and inequality are minimum under socialist economy because government is, holding the strings. Scarcity definition of economics was given by, I have discussed this in the first class, it was given by Robinson. Because Samuelson gave the growth definition, Smith gave the wealth definition, Marshall gave the welfare definition. So naturally, we are left with Robinson. Which of the following statement is correct? Microeconomics is the study of particular household and a particular firm. Okay. Macroeconomics is important for studying the economic conditions of a country. Yes. So both are correct. Profit motive is a merit of capitalism. And by the way, wait. Here they are asking is a merit of. Haan to theek hai, it's capitalism. All right. Unlimited ends and limited means unlimited wants and limited resources together present the problem of what? Come on, it was the central problem. It was the problem of choice. Because our wants are unlimited and resources are limited, so we have to decide which want to satisfy and which want to postpone. So it is the problem of choice that we are seeing. Acha, which economy is also known as command economy? Come on, socialist economy. So friends, with this, chapter 1, unit 2 is over, and since chapter 1 has only 2 units, unit 1 and unit 2, so entirely chapter 1 is over. Make sure you all watch this and share it with your friends, because whatever we are discussing, I am taking the guarantee it is more than enough for your CA foundation preparation. That's it. Thank you everyone. Goodbye for the day.